Hi everyone, it's Shona Stephenson, which is race director from Brisbane Trail Ultra, and I'm here with the marvelous Hayley Teale from Team La Sportiva. Welcome, Hayley.
Thank you, Shona. Great to be here.
So Hayley is a bit of a weapon. She won our 2020 110 kilometre event, which was in the heat, I remember. So it was quite a hot event. And not only has she won the Brisbane Trail Ultra 110K, she has been, I've had a look at Hayley's records and her stats. And since 2013, she's pretty much been on the podium, if not every race she seems to do, but a lot of them. And we are so excited that Hayley is now up in Queensland and racing the Brisbane Trail Ultra in 2022. So thank you, Hayley, again for being on this show.
I'm looking forward to it.
So when I guess like people can hear an accent from you. Where are you from?
So I'm from Lancashire in the UK. We lived on the Lancashire-Yorkshire border. So sometimes people think I'm from Lancashire and sometimes they think I'm from Yorkshire, but that's fine. I don't get offended either way. But we lived on the edge of the Pennines, which was moorland. So yeah, I think that was part of the start of my love of trails.
So Yorkshire or Yorkshire?
Yorkshire, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yorkshire, that's in the north of England.
Yeah, north of England, yeah.
And just
below it.
Okay, so just when we've been chatting together, I know that you said that you ran around the Lake Districts a bit. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we were about an hour's drive from the Lake District. So quite often at weekends we would head over there. And there were some beautiful mountains and obviously lots of lakes over there. So there were lots of hiking paths and trails that were very well maintained. It's a really popular destination for hikers, trail runners, mountain bikers. Yeah, it's beautiful out there. And I think if it wasn't for the weather, we would have probably ended up moving to the Lake District.
So I know that the lake, I see like on social media a few photos of the Lakes District, and it is quite often that classic, huge mountains, beautiful lakes, but also freezing cold. So I can understand why you came out here. Was there a favorite place that you like to run there, or a favorite race that you did over there, or did you not race when you were in the UK?
Yeah, no, I didn't do any events in the UK. So I started hiking to the Lake District. I didn't actually run in any competitions in the UK. So I started hiking and did some cycling in the Lake District. Did a little bit of running, but hardly anything in comparison to what I do these days. It wasn't until I moved to Australia that I took up running. And that initially was probably go back a little while. When I had my daughter, Caitlin, back in 2006, I had quite bad postnatal depression. And I found that the best way to overcome that was to get outside and just go hiking for hours. So I put Caitlin in the baby sling and take the dogs out, and we would just go hiking, and that would just kind of get me out of the rut that I was in at the time. So when we moved to Australia, and I was pregnant with my second child, Mitchell, so he was born in 2011. I just was a little worried that the postnatal depression was going to come back, because if you've had it once, the chances of you getting it again are quite high. So I wanted to try and kind of get a grip on it before it got a grip on me. So as soon as I was able to, after Mitchell was born, I started getting outside again and just going hiking and getting him in the baby pusher as soon as he was big enough, and we would just go out for hours. And I really enjoyed that. And then we got a treadmill at home, because obviously it's hard with a new baby to get out without them. So when he was sleeping, I'd get on the treadmill and just build up my fitness. And then once I'd built up enough courage, I joined a running club in Adelaide, which is where we were at the time. And yeah, and it just went from there really. So didn't start competing until I think Mitchell was probably 2 years old, was when I did my first half marathon event.
And so how did you make the transition from, like, I'm also obviously I'm also a mom just like you, and I don't know if I did used to use running as a good way to make myself feel a lot better, that's for sure. I used to maybe do something similar, throw two children in the pram the minute they could. I even shoved toys around them so they would sit upright, because one didn't want to lie down when she was 6 weeks old or whatever, and so I had to sit her upright anyway. So I shoved toys around them and then off I go up some hills. But it took me like from like a good few years to build up. How long did it take you to get from like just, nice chilled out from maybe your first race through to like, not necessarily like I see you here in 2013 on the podium, but how did you build yourself up?
Yeah, so it took a couple of years really. So I started, like I said, I started on the treadmill. I already had a fitness base from prior to having Mitchell. I would go to the gym. I did a lot of hiking, always out walking the dogs. So I had kind of a base fitness there. And then once Mitchell was born, the treadmill and the going on the running groups at a weekend. But I took it quite sensibly, and just, with having a baby as well, and Caitlin, who was 5 when Mitchell was born, there's 5 years between them. So, busy life, it's always good to keep a balance there. So it took a couple of years before I was doing ultra marathons. That was when I did my first ultra marathon in 2013. Mitchell was born in 2011. So before that, I did a few 10Ks and a couple of half marathons. But yeah, I'd say 2 years.
So you came through in 2013 then and finished, I've got first female. So in your first ultra, you effectively was a first female, is that right?
That was it was a 6-hour challenge. So it was the Adelaide 6, 12, 24 hours. So it's on a 2.2 kilometer paved circuit. And I had never done a marathon. So I think my furthest distance probably in training was about 30K. So because it was a timing thing, and you're on a circuit, I thought, well, I'll just go out and see what happens, and kind of see how long I can hold on for, see how far I can get. And yeah, it was a good social event as well. Lots of people that I knew there, people from the running group. So it was a lot of fun, as much as running around in circles can be. But yeah, it was good. But I couldn't walk for 3 days afterwards. And I remember having to come downstairs on my bum.
Oh, that sounds awful. Oh my goodness, the things we do. But it must have been all the hiking that you'd already been previously doing meant that you were used to staying on your legs for that amount of time.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because when we used to go hiking in the Lake District, it would be from early morning until, so from dawn till dusk. You would take your pack, you'd take your picnic. I mean, it was a pretty chilled day compared to what we do these days. But yeah, we were out on our feet all day, climbing the mountains. So yeah, I certainly think the base helped there.
So you moved from the UK then over to South Australia. So what are the trails like in South Australia? Tell us about them.
Oh, they're beautiful. Yeah, there's some fabulous places to run. And the trail running community over there is growing so much. But yeah, there's lots of different trails, from the trails down south around Victor Harbour Way. And then you've got further north, which is still classed as South Australia, but you've got the Flinders Ranges. So I did an event at the Flinders Ranges there called the Hubert 100, which was beautiful. And then yeah, everything in between. It's such a really lovely place.
So what are your favourite races in South Australia? Tell us about them.
So probably the two that stand out there's the Hubert, definitely, in the Flinders Ranges. That's a spectacular event there. It's the Flinders Ranges are really special, and it's where I saw my first wild dingo. So I'll never forget that. Pretty scary because I was on my own at the time, but yeah, luckily it was all good. But yeah, the Flinders Ranges are beautiful. But closer to Adelaide, there are two events. There's one called the Hyson, and there's one called Eurobilla. And the Eurobilla is very close to the city, but it covers some really lovely trails. It's quite hilly considering it's so close to the city, but a lot of single track, and it goes through some beautiful national parks. So that's definitely one I would recommend. And then the other one is the Hyson, and it used to go from south to north. So it would start near Victor Harbour, which is down south, and then it was 105 kilometres, the event, and it would finish further north at a place called Rocky Creek. And they reversed it. So they now start at Rocky Creek and finish near Victor Harbour, which I think is a great idea because Victor Harbour is a lovely town for tourists, and there's lots to kind of see and do. So to have the finish line there means it's good for families, just like with the Brisbane Trail. You've got accommodation there, you've got restaurants and cafes, so it's family friendly if you wanted to stay there for the weekend and things. So yeah, but that covers some beautiful trails as well.
Oh, that sounds like my kind of race. I quite like finishing where I can have some champagne and some burgers and chips. I think I've done Great Ocean Walk, and that was really cool because we did get in the ocean afterwards, and of course Surf Coast Century you can get in the ocean, and the trails for that are fantastic as well. So you've able to come across to Surf Coast Century. I saw that you had like a bit of like a huge success with the Razorback run too, and we've all heard about that. So when I used to live in New South Wales, I used to quite often look at that race going, okay, I really want to do that one. Tell me about that race. That sounds really cool.
Razorback's beautiful. I'd probably say Razorback's it's up there and definitely in my top 5. And I think it's a different kind of racing because it's not marked. So it's Paul Ashton's races are very, I would say, raw and rugged, and that's just how he likes them. And he doesn't try and tell you otherwise. He does warn you that you out there, it's on an unmarked course, and that the weather up in the Alps can change quite quickly. You can get 4 seasons in one day out there, and that's for sure. And I think that's what kind of enticed me, is the fact that you have to be self-sufficient. The Razorback, the first aid station's at 44 kilometres, and at that point you've climbed 3 mountains. So you're filling up from the streams. You have to take the sterilising tablets because you can't carry all the fluid that you're going to need to get to that point. So yeah, I think just for something different. Don't get me wrong, I like my marked courses sometimes because you can just switch off and not really have to worry about things. But I think if you know what you're getting into and you're prepared for that, then it's more an adventure. And yeah, and so the first time I did it, went off track a few times, but managed to get my way around. And it's just spectacular. Climbing Feather Top, it takes a couple of hours to do 11 kilometres because you're climbing 1,400 metres straight from the start all the way up Feather Top. And the views from the top are amazing. Close to the finish, you're going along the Razorback Ridge line, which again is just magnificent. So yeah, it's I would highly recommend that people get out and visit there, but just to be aware that you may need some navigation skills and make sure you carry your mandatory gear, because I've been out there in really hot temperatures where I've been sussing the streams to cool off, but I've also been there when it was -4 and gale force winds. So yeah, it can change same time of year. You just don't know what you're going to get.
But it would be definitely on my pick list too. Tell us your secret behind your consistency. Here you have like this amazing span running from I think it's 2017 all the way through to 2020, 2021, where you've been on the podium consistently. So what's your secret?
I don't think there's any secret really. I wish there was sometimes. I think it's just doing it for the love of it, really. It's just become part of my life now. And I have had coaches when I've needed some specifics or there are some unknowns in what I'm doing. But a lot of my running is by feel, so it's listening to the body. I don't do high mileage. I do quite a lot of elevation, but I like my hills, so that's probably why. I've actually tried to concentrate a little bit more on speed over the last 6 months, just because I do a lot of hills and that can slow you down. So I'm trying to get a bit more balance there. But I think it's just trying to keep some consistency, but also to listen to the body and get balance in life, because I work full time. I'm a mum of 2, and both my kids have their hobbies, so I need to be there for them as well. So it's balancing work and family and training. And I find that sometimes you're trying to juggle a lot of balls, but if one of them falls out of whack, it affects other areas. So that's something that I try and keep consistent and just try to make sure that I'm giving just as much attention to all areas. So I think that's probably why I've stayed kind of in competition for so long. I don't know how much longer I've got left, but I'll keep going for now.
Sometimes I reckon that if you are a mum and if you do work, that you are on borrowed time, and maybe that also means that you're really more efficient with what you do, and potentially, the fact that you do have to stop and look after your kids does potentially mean that you're held back from overtraining. Would you suggest?
Yeah, I think that's definitely something like yesterday, Sunday. Ideally, from a training perspective, it would have been go out for a long run. Bearing in mind what I've got on this year, I could have probably been out for a 3-4 hour run. But my son was in a motorbike competition yesterday, so I got an hour in, got up early, got an hour of hills in, and then came back, got the lunches sorted out, and then headed out to the trial. And I was on my feet all day. I was on my feet for like 5 hours following around on the motorbike. So it's kind of cross training, but that's just, again, going back to that balance of, where do I need to be today? What's the most important thing for me to be doing in my life? And as much as from a training perspective, a long run would have probably been ideal, at the same time, I needed to be where I was needed as a mum.
Yeah, I used to, when I was competing more, I'd almost have like a dedicated family weekend, or I'd work in 3 weeks. So then I do a long run one weekend, which your focus run, and then maybe the next week it's a real chilled out week. So then I was there. The week later it might be a bit more of a in between, like only 3 hours out and about, but I have to get up insanely early, and then I go out again. So it did mean that I was giving myself proper rest and then also family time at the same time.
That's it. And then you're also trying to balance, making sure that you're eating properly, hydrating properly, but also sleep's a big thing for me. Because if I get up, it's always difficult in Queensland summer, because you need to get up early to train, especially if you're going long, because it gets so hot through the summer and so humid. But at the same time, you need enough sleep to allow your body to recover. So trying to get that balance right as well is quite important, I find.
You've had obviously you've also raced in New South Wales, so you've done UTA and you've also done the elephant race. You've actually got to race in South Australia, Victoria. Have you done Tassie? No Tassie yet.
April
you're doing Tassie, and then you've also done Northern Territory as well. So and then New South Wales, Queensland. You haven't done, have you anything WA?
No, I've been to WA, but I haven't raced there yet.
Like, what race did you feel that you developed the most as an athlete in?
I'd probably say UTA. UTA was one of those races that there's a lot of hype. It's a big event, and I went to UTA with kind of no expectations. I was so relaxed. Even at the start line, I had no nerves. I was just excited, and it was really strange, but I think it's because there was no kind of pre-race interviews. Nobody knew who I was. I was just there to enjoy the day, and I think I looked at it, I didn't look at it as a race, I looked at it as a test, because I'd had a really good training block. I'd been working on my nutrition, and I just wanted to kind of put it all together and see if I could make it work. And I had the best day, where everything just came together. Everything worked. You know, I was still running in the last 20k, and I felt strong. No stomach issues, just smiling all the way through the race. And yeah, so I think that was probably one of the best races where everything came together for me. The temperature suited me. It was just perfect. And I think I came 7th female, which I was really, really stoked about. But, you know, for me, that day was just about trying to put everything together that I've been learning in training, because it doesn't matter how many ultras you've done, you're always learning, and something change, you know, things can change. What works in one event might not work in the next event. And you know, I always look at ultras as like you're problem solving through the race right from the start, you know, to controlling those pre-race nerves, you know, even in the days leading up to it, the taper, the nutrition, the carb loading, it's all problem solving. So that day, yeah, it was a perfect day for me. I wish every race could be like that.
Tell us how, because you've raced so much, how you've been managed to come back from a low spot in a race, and what you did to problem solve your way out of it.
I would probably say Surf Coast Century. So both times I've done Surf Coast Century have been interesting. The first time I did it, you'll probably see in the results that it took me quite a while. I had serious stomach issues. I was off course for quite some time. I'm not sure what had happened, whether it was my nutrition leading into the race or the pasta party the night before. But yeah. I had a really, really bad time. I think I was off course for about an hour and a half at different stages. And I was about 6k from the 60k aid station. There's an aid station by 60k. And I just told myself, just get to that aid station and then you can pull out. But then as I'm approaching the aid station, I was like, well, I'm still putting one foot in front of the other. I'm not at, you know, right at the back. There are still people behind me. I'm still within cutoff times. Can I still move? You know, can I learn from this? Can I pick myself up? Because this isn't going to be the last time that this happens. I'm sure it's going to happen again. And yeah, I went on and finished it. So that was big learning for me, was that, you know, that you can approach races with different mindsets. And I mean, if you're in it to be competitive and you're no longer competitive, and the reason for you being there is only that reason, then I can understand it, because a lot of elites do that. You know, if they're not up there and they're not having that day, then they save themselves for the next event. And I can understand why that is, but that wasn't the case for me that day. And I had things to learn. So it was a case of, you know, toughen up, keep going. As long as you can medically keep going and you can still get food and water in, then there's no reason for me to pull out. So that was good. The next time I did Surf Coast Century was interesting for other reasons, because I'd had quite a good lead up in training, but then I had 2 sheep at home, and I went into the pen one morning to let them out for breakfast, and one of them took me out from behind because something spooked her. So I went down on my hip and spent the next 2 weeks, which should have been a lovely taper leading into Surf Coast. I spent the next 2 weeks in physio trying to release my hip that had locked up and all the muscles had just frozen. So starting Surf Coast with that in mind was, you know, I was a little apprehensive, but I was moving, and I just thought, you know, you're here, just run your own race. Don't worry about what anybody else is doing, just keep going. And yeah, I ended up having a really good day.
Your time is 10:41. Is that right? Yeah. It's a good time.
I remember seeing Aaron, I think it was again the 60k checkpoint, and he said, are you doing all right? Because I must have been limping, kind of not, my form mustn't have been great because the hip issues were still there. And he's like, are you doing all right? Are you sure you don't want to pull out? And I'm like, no, I'm great. Because I was good in myself. My head was right. And I think that allowed me to then continue. And it wasn't tightening or getting worse. If it had been tightening or getting worse, or I thought that I would have been doing extra damage, then I would have pulled out. But, as much as I may not have looked like I was comfortable, I was doing all right.
My kids wanted me to do a long jump competition off the top of some sand dunes. And so my girls said, Mum, I want you to beat the boys. So I jumped off the top of, I don't know how many meter high sand dune, like a big sand dune. Anyway, so I jumped off. I actually didn't even land on the sand dune. I landed on the flats underneath the sand dune and then landed on one foot and then did a somersault afterwards because I landed with my leg at full extension, did a somersault afterwards. And I went into my physio and I just knew it was like a hamstring. And I went to my physio and they just said, it's like you've got a dancer's injury, Shona. As long as you don't do as long as you don't do that when you're racing, you'll be okay. And the funniest thing, I was actually carrying that injury into Run Lero Pinta. And so day 2, when you're tight from the night before, I was like worried about the girl behind me, and I tripped over and fell into the Spinifex grass. And then it was just like the perfect example of, don't worry about anyone behind you, Shona.
Yeah.
You look after that bloody hamstring of yours and run straight and you won't fall in the Spinifex grass. But like, it's really funny. So, we all carry those injuries that are just like silly things that you go, oh my gosh, we shouldn't be doing this. But it's great to know that your body, if you run with, your best possible technique, you can run through it, which was really nice. You talk about that first Surf Coast Century experience that you had. It's almost like that's how you have to run a mile, right? Because a 100-mile race is never going to be pretty the whole way through. But you've managed to finish our BTU 110 and you won that race. So tell us that race for you. How did you find BTU 110?
BTU, I had a really good, I felt pretty good until the top of Kokoda climb, which kind of, that finished me off. That's an evil climb at that stage in the race, Shona. So I think up until then, I was moving really well. The trails are beautiful. The volunteers were so good. So I didn't, there was no, like sometimes you can get a bit bored or you can have some low points. I didn't have any of them through the course. I think it was just excitement and I was moving well and the day was great. It was hot, don't get me wrong, it was so hot. So trying to keep cool was challenging at times. But going into Gold Creek, I sat down there and just had a little rest, cooled off a little and made sure I had stocked up because I knew what was coming up, which was the Kokoda climb, not too far away. But then, once I'd got up there and then crossed into Mount Cootha, that's when things started to hurt. And I think it was the downhill into the next aid station that was tough. I was certainly feeling it by that point, and I could have quite easily stopped at that aid station and said, that was me done. So that was super tough. But my family were at the aid station, so my husband had brought my son out and daughter, and Caitlin was coming to the finish line with me. So I knew that they were going to be there and that was something to look forward to. But I think my husband knew when he saw my face that I was struggling at that point. He knows which buttons to press. When I did my very first 100 kilometers, he told me he thought I'd get to 80k. So that was like red rag to a bull to me. And I think he knows how I operate. So when I got to the aid station, I think as much as he could see that I was struggling, it was tough love, and it was a case of, come on, get out of here, don't stop here for too long, cool down, get a move on, get to the finish line. And that's basically what I did. Followed the instructions and off we went. So it was good as well because from that last aid station, you've still got some more beautiful single track. So that was really enjoyable and not overly hilly as well, because once you've done that Kokoda climb and then gone down to Mount Coot-tha, the legs are pretty trashed at that point. And then the change of terrain coming through the city, that's really quite nice, because you've got the city lights, you've got people are, it's the party atmosphere, people are out in the bars and the cafes, and they must think it's very surreal seeing these very smelly, stinky runners running through the city, but it's quite amusing. And it was also really good because I'm sponsored by Infinite Nutrition, and they'd come out and they'd been tracking me, and they came out and popped out on one of the streets, and they were pipping their horn, and the van was driving down the road, and yeah, they were shouting words of encouragement and popping out every now and again, which was really lovely. So yeah, it was a tough day because it was so hot, because we'd had to reschedule due to COVID. So it was really hot, and I know a lot of people suffered. I know I did all my back was chafed pretty bad. But it was also tough because of the elevation, because that takes a toll, especially towards the end. But also that extra distance, Shona, 100, it's not 100K. And I think, your mind, you're so used to doing 100K, and you watch ticks for 100K. And even though it's not, you're doing more than 100K, you still, it's like 100K, I want to finish now. No, you still got to carry on. There's still more to do. So yeah, that was it was certainly a tough race.
Oh, it is funny. We got that extra point for you guys.
I worked for that extra point, Shona, I can tell you that much.
Yeah, it was my old training ground, so it's funny that it's actually quite funny for me to stand on the finish line too and check everyone's butts as I come across, because they're usually covered in mud.
Yeah, I took a stack after the final aid station, so going through the single track, and I think that was just tired legs,
Yeah,
didn't pick the feet up. Yeah, but I think that was my first and only stack on the whole course. So yeah, that's not too bad.
Yeah, it's really technical through there. Like, it's surprisingly technical. I used to use that section after the final checkpoint as like if I was going over to race in Europe or Japan, as kind of like get my head in the technical game, to hone your skills. So then whatever, Europe could give me, if I could make it through those rocks, effectively is what it is, rocks on the ground, I can make it through anywhere. So after you finished BTU, like, we all know that Run Larapinta is beautiful, and it's also another Sam Moffat event, which is a rapid ascent event, which is Surf Coast Entry. So it's the same race director. You took a trip. Poor Sam had to postpone Run Larapinta. So it's usually run in August. So he had it racing in April. So how was Run Larapinta for you? And how was that different from racing like BTU 110?
Yeah. Run Larapinta was amazing. I mean, you've done it yourself. It's just spectacular out there. It's like nothing I've ever seen. And I think what made it extra special is that I didn't really have any expectations, and it was a last minute. I think I booked it 4 weeks before, and it was a friend that was going, and I just kind of mentioned it in passing to my husband, and he was like, well, do you not want to go? And I was like, yep, booked the flights that night, and off I was. It doesn't take much. As soon as I've got permission, I'm off. So yeah, it was a last minute thing, so I kind of went with no expectations. I had a good training base, because before Run Larapinta, I'd been over and done the Australian Alpine Ascent at Mount Kosciuszko. So I had that already in the legs from March. So from there, I just did some back-to-back, like 3 days of back-to-back fairly long runs, just to kind of get the body used to getting up and doing it again the day after. And then a good taper. So Run Larapinta, I think the key thing running the multi-stages was to remember the discipline, that as soon as your race for that day is finished, to be thinking about the next day before your race is even finished. So not just thinking about nutrition for that particular day, but making sure, because I don't know about you, but if I'm doing a long run, I might not eat in the last kind of hour, 45 minutes, because, I know that I'm going to be finishing soon, or but it's a different mindset when you're thinking about the following day's training. Same with back-to-back runs, it's about making sure that you're thinking about what's ahead and not just what you're doing now. And then also dealing with any niggles straight away, because you can't wing it. If you've got a blister, you're not just thinking about that day, you're thinking about the following day. Sleeping, foam rolling, stretching, just treating it as a 4-day race rather than a 1-day was certainly different. And I also found that my feet, by day 3, my feet were swollen, and I couldn't get my feet in the shoes that I had on day 1 and day 2 by day 3. So I'd taken 3 different pairs of shoes, and day 3 I had to put a different set of shoes on that were much wider.
How did you find day 2, when I think you're only supposed to be 8Ks to go, and you're running into, is it Stanley Chasm? Is that right? Stanley Chasm? So tell me about that day.
That was, well, this is it. It's a 42K day, but in terms of time, it's an ultra marathon. It's huge. And yeah, I mean, you're going into the creek beds, you're in the rock beds, and it's not marked, so you're looking for the markers. I had my phone out, I was trying to navigate using my phone, because there were sections where I was alone and in the middle of a creek bed, couldn't see any markers anywhere, and you're just kind of looking around and everything looks the same. So that was quite daunting. But then as you come out of the creek bed, you're then climbing over big boulders. So it was an adventure. I loved it. I absolutely loved that element. It was, you're going from sweet single trail, quite flowy, to then you've got some decent climbs, to then these creek beds, to then bouldering. And then, it was amazing. You had absolutely everything on day 2. It was fantastic. But that last 8K, what did that take? Something like 2 hours to do 8K? I'm like, really? How spectacular was it on that ridge line at the top on day 3? That was really special, wasn't it?
I think it's because the desert is so clear.
I couldn't decide whether day 2 finish, because of that finish through Stanley Chasm, or whether day 3 because of that ridge line. I can't decide between the two, because I love ridge lines, and that's part of the reason why Razorback, I've been there 3 times now. So the ridge lines are pretty special.
It was I think because it is in the desert, and because there is no humidity at all, and so when you're on top of that ridge, you can see, and the desert also is flat, it means that you can see for, like, I don't know, I'm guessing 300 kilometers. I don't know. You can see for absolutely, hundreds of kilometers, where you just don't get that same vastness, like, in like where we are, there's always humidity, rainforests and so on. So it is special. It's quite a cool little race. And so after Run Larapinta, you were on our lineup to do BTU 110, but you turned into the best volunteer in the world. So what happened after Run Larapinta? Tell me about.
So day 3, after I finished day 3 of Run Larapinta, I picked up an injury in it was my ITB. So it was just above the knee, but to the side. So ITB. So I taped it up because I wasn't backing out of day 4. It didn't matter how long it would take me. I was finishing, I was there to finish this. So I taped it up and off I went. And it was a tough day that day, but because of the injury, it was slow, and it was there all day, just niggling. And then the next day, getting to the airport was interesting as well. But then I rested. But the following weekend, we booked a long weekend at Hamilton Island, because I'd gone to do the Hayley Half Marathon, and my kids love Hamilton Island. So we booked it just not just as a weekend away, and I'll do the Hayley Half Marathon whilst I'm there. So I'd rested all week and I went for a little trot on the Saturday. I didn't even do the park run on Hamilton Island because I was like, no, I'm still not quite sure how this is going to be. But then on Sunday, I taped it up and did the Hayley half marathon. And then once I'd finished that, I'd completely wrecked my ITB. So the injury that I'd carried from day 3 at Larapinta, I completely stuffed at the Hayley half marathon to the point where I couldn't walk on it. I thought I was going to need crutches. And then it was a slow recovery. I just had to let everything settle down, loosen up, and I kept trying, and it was just painful. So I just kept cross training to keep the fitness up. It's hard as a runner because you know that you need to rest, but you don't want to lose that fitness that you've worked hard to build. So you're constantly trying to get back, but at the same time, you know that you probably shouldn't. So that's the argument that I was having with myself for the next few months, to the point where even the week before BTU, I remember speaking to you thinking, I think I'm going to be all right. I'm not 100% sure, but let's see what happens. But it wasn't until a few days before that I actually sat down and spoke with my husband. And I think sometimes when you say things out loud, it sinks in more, when you actually get it out of your head and you talk and you hear yourself talk, and then you think, yeah, I really shouldn't be doing this. So yeah, that's when I made the I mean, I even said to you that I might just try and do the 20k just because I really wanted to take part. But in the end, I decided that I'd probably be more use as a volunteer than I would actually participate in last year, unfortunately.
You were #1 volunteer. We had cause tampering up at Mount Nebo. The locals decided that they want to take down our markers for us. It was like, no. So you're out marking the course, which was fantastic. And then you're at the start line helping out, finish line. You were all over it. So no, it
was good fun. I had a really good day. It's sometimes really, it's really good to give back and also see it from the other side. And I had a lot of friends volunteering and running the event as well, so it meant I got to pop out on the course and see people as well. So yeah, it was a really good day.
I'm happy that you enjoyed volunteering. We loved you there. So now that you're going to be good to yourself and you're now looking at the 100-miler, what have you done differently to make sure that you will be okay for the event? So have you had to change anything up a little bit?
So since coming back from the injury, it took until August for me to do my first event. So I did a smaller event initially, the Scenic Rim Trail Running Series, and then I did the Scenic Rim Ultra, the 65k. A couple of years before, I'd done the 105, but I decided coming back that I'll just do the 65 and be sensible. So I did that, and things have been going pretty well. I had a little bit of a niggle in the knee, but again, just being patient and doing some cross training has helped there. And I think that's what I kind of learned, is that I need to get that balance, not try and push the volume. Strava's a wonderful thing, but comparison can be a joy, and it's about realizing that everybody's different, everybody's bodies are different, people adapt differently, and just because somebody's doing 120k a week doesn't necessarily mean that that's what you need to do. And even after years of running and years of competing, you still sometimes have to tell yourself that. So for me, I find that my training base sits between 80 and 110k a week. I try and get some decent elevation in there, but I also supplement with cross training. So I do a few gym sessions a week, which helps with the maintaining the injuries. I see it as homework, but it's something that keeps me doing what I love. So a couple of gym sessions a week, and also I do some cross training on the elliptical with the weight vest, which again, it's building strength through the core and the legs, and by using the weight vest on there, because it's not putting any impact through the body, but it's it's not running, so I can I don't use those kilometers as part of my running kilometers. I use the cross trainer with the weight vest as strength training.
So what's your favorite, because you like have killer quads, right? Like, you have the most amazing quads. What do you do to keep your legs looking like that?
So yeah, I do some weighted hiking. So I have a 8 kilo weight vest, and I'll hike up Tambourine Mountain with the weight vest on, and I use the weight vest on the elliptical, but also strength work in the gym. So I do quite a lot of lunges, squats, step ups, single leg work. For a lot of that's for ankle stability. Yeah, that's kind of my staple, my go-to. But yeah, I do like the step ups.
You are an amazing climber, so I can see why now you're an amazing climber. You definitely put the strength in where it's needed, and all the hill climbing that you do with the weight vest, yeah, it would make you so strong. It was really only the extra 45Ks, right, for the BTU, because it's one, I think we're 115 for the 110.
Extra ultra. When you say it like that, Shona, it's quite scary.
The extra 6-foot track at the end or halfway through the race. So when you were thinking about the extra 6-foot track on top of our 110K race, what are you doing mentally, like now when you're training, or are you changing like your distances up a little bit, or what are you thinking of that's going to be a little bit different from 110 race for you?
At the moment, I've not changed an awful lot, but that's because we're in the heat of summer. So it's my intention to is to then to start to build the back-to-backs and the volume. Not necessarily huge kilometers, but more time, and I'll use that time with the weight vest and with the cross training as well. So again, keeping what I'm doing, but just increasing that volume in terms of time. It is daunting, don't get me wrong, when I think about 100 miles. When I think about the 110 and then I think about the extra, it is daunting. And also, a fairly new thing for me would be, I mean, I have done it before, but to go through the night, because when you're starting at 5 or 6 in the morning, when that night section hits, that's when you're really tired, and that's the easiest time to call it a day. You want your bed, you've had enough. So again, dealing with that and thinking about how I'm going to process that when that happens. So I've got a pacer sorted who's a close friend. So Cherie's going to be pacing me, which is fabulous because we do a lot of training together. And it'll be so good to look forward to having that company on the trails and knowing that I can just put my head down and follow her. And I think that will certainly help with the night section, which is probably the part that intimidates me the most. It's tired, the night, you just trying to navigate and keep your head together and stay in the game, really, as opposed to taking the easy option at the next checkpoint. So yeah, making sure that doesn't happen. But my approach is probably going to be to treat it as, I remember Andy Dubois once said to me, in a miler, you start slow and then you go slower. So it's just to take it really steady, because whatever you lose in the first half, you're going to need in the second half. And I don't want to burn out. And this is new for me, this distance. So I'd much rather try and keep some in the bank than use up what I've got and then struggle through the latter half when it's night and you're struggling anyway. So nutrition is going to be a big thing. Making sure that I'm eating plenty, which, because I'll be going at a lower intensity, I find that at a lower intensity I do tend to eat more. And also I'm hoping that the temperatures are going to be kind in July, not like when I did the 110 in October, because again it's hard to eat solids when it's hot. So yeah, I'm hoping that the weather's going to be kinder at that point. So it's a combination of the training leading in, staying injury free, so keeping healthy, getting the nutrition right, and just taking it really steady.
In July, we definitely have the opposite problem to that, COVID postponed October race. We could have like foul weather and rain, and we're worried about people being hypothermic. So they're pulling out because they're too cold rather than too hot, especially if they're going through the night. Yeah, so it's interesting actually, because the big pull-out point for the race is at 85 Ks when your lovely pacer can start with you. So, you've got like people there who can pick you up and take you home. And then at the other big pull-out point is checkpoint number 5, Gold Creek. And then they still have Kokoda afterwards. And then I think everyone's thinking of Kokoda, going, I don't want to do Kokoda. Once you can make it into checkpoint number 6, as long as you can make it to there, it's now 21 Ks to go. The biggest pull-out point for us is 85. I think, it's exactly maybe what Andy has said, that if you've gone too fast too early, at 85 Ks is when you feel it. I remember I did a race, UTMB, and, I had a game plan. I DNF'd it once, and then I had a really good result the second time. The first time I was trying to run a lot of stuff, whereas the second time, my second attempt, I had like a strategy where I ran 20 steps and walked 20 steps. And I just watched everyone go past me. I was in like 25th place or something, like 30th place. I don't even know. But then I just chipped away. And the good thing about like a DNF is that it teaches you that it's not over until it's over. And so I could see, okay, I pulled out at 105 Ks. People thought that I was in really good nick to pull out. But it was good to see the times that everyone was coming in at. Who else then pulled out after you? If I stayed and I got through that, that awful dark space that I was in, I would have ended up here. You know what I mean? If only I'd stuck it in there. So it was just like a different strategy, and that really worked for me. Just going, okay, go slow.
I think it's going to be a long day. I think I'm certainly going to be taking poles. I didn't have poles in the 110, but I'll definitely be taking poles in the miler. And then I think the other thing as well is expectations. Because quite often, I don't know about you, but if I'm entering a race, I'll look at previous results to kind of grasp what kind of terrain it is. If it's like Pinta, 42K is the equivalent of doing maybe a 60K because of the terrain you're dealing with. But, so I try and get a grasp of what that is. But my intention for the miler is to set my expectations low, because I find that if I say to myself, I want to do it in 24 hours, and then halfway through the race, I'm not on target for that, how am I then going to feel? Am I then going to feel like giving up because I'm not going to meet those expectations that I've set myself? Whereas if I say to myself, allow yourself 28 hours to do this, or whatever it is, when I get round to looking at results and numbers and things, but if I set my expectations lower, then I feel like I've got more of a chance of, pushing myself to get through, because I'll meet those expectations. And I think sometimes that's where my mindset is, is that if I feel like I'm kind of letting myself down, then sometimes that can affect your race. Whereas I'd rather just take my time and enjoy it and achieve the goal at the end, which is to finish.
I think that the key to a 100-mile race is that you survive it, you don't race it. And that when you get to maybe like 120 Ks, you might start thinking about the finish then, or, if even the last checkpoint. So I think it's about having a strategy of where you're going to walk, and that's okay with it, rather than just finding yourself walking because you feel like you're not feeling good, or then you feel lazy, or like you're not doing what you meant to do. And I think definitely no time. It is like survival first. It's really awful though, isn't it? Because you kind of need the time there to make sure that you eat and drink. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So you play this game of, oh, I need a time goal, and then you need to tell your poor support crew what to do, and then and then they start freaking out because you're 2 hours behind time of where you're meant to be. But you got enough food and water on you, you're okay. But it's definitely survival first rather than racing.
And that's my intention, is just to look at it that way. Like you say, it's not a race, it's an adventure. And to know that I'll be going right through the night, and instead of thinking I'll be finished before the takeaways shut, it'll be I'll be finished and then get breakfast. So yeah.
So what's up? So what's your racing calendar looking like for 2022?
So 2022, once I knew that I couldn't get to Tarawera, I booked to go to Tasmania in April. So there's a new event there this year. It's the Kunanyi Mountain Run. So it's Mount Wellington, and it's 68k with 4,000 meters elevation. So,
oh wow!
Yeah, some good climbing. So the poles will be there again. So I'm really looking forward to that. It looks spectacular. So yeah, a real good mountain run. So yeah, so I am entered in the UTA 50. Whether I get there or not, I'm not sure. If I do, I'll probably use it as a training weekend, because my training won't be focused on a 50k, it'll be focused on the miler. So it wouldn't have been in my plan had it not been for the deferral from last year. So, but because I'm in there, I may just go down and do it. And then BTU miler. After that, I'll just see what my legs say. I've not really thought beyond the BTU miler. So yeah, the two main races are the Kunanyi Mountain Run in April and then BTU miler in July.
Yeah, awesome. I'm so happy to have you coming in. I'm really impressed that you're stepping up to do the miler as well. Like really impressed. What shoes do you think you'll be wearing for the miler?
So I will start in the Akasha. So the Akasha, because they're kind of my most versatile kind of go-to for all kinds of terrain. So I think they'll suit the BTU course really well. But then I will have out on course, either with crew or in drop bags, I will have some wider shoes out on course, just because of the way my feet swelled at Larapinta. So I'll have a backup plan there so that I can change shoes if I need to. I wore the Akashas for the 110 and had no issues at all from start to finish. No blisters, no soreness. So they could probably go the full distance, but I would like to have something there in case I need them. So I'll probably have Mutants, because they're really wide, which is great. Or even perhaps the Jackals, because they're also quite wide around the toe box. So they'll give me some room if I feel like I need that.
I was on like chunk of the course on the weekend, and yeah, I think having stuff like the protection of just those heavier shoes is the right way to go, because it is quite rocky out there, and there are the few of those fire trail descents just around that Mount Gloria section. It can be quite sharp underfoot. So yeah, it's
the rocks and also the mud. So you need a shoe that can cope with muddy, especially July if we get wet weather potentially. Because I remember the first year of BTU, it rained the whole day pretty much, didn't it? So yeah, we could potentially have rain. Hopefully not, but yeah, we need a shoe that can cope with the rocks, cope with the grip that we may need.
So our most popular event at the BTU is the 30K. And so that sells out every year. And but Cora wants to know, if you were racing a 30K, what shoe would you wear?
Ooh. If I was racing the 30, I would probably go for either the Bushido or the Jackal. So both have excellent grip, but lightweight.
Okay.
So fast and grippy.
Okay.
So those, but with good support too.
I think I've been in the Helios for like 3 years now. You see me fumble around in those.
I love those. Yeah.
But they're sold out. And so I was in the Lichens on the weekend and the Jackals. And that's the one thing I felt with the Jackals was the amount of support was insane. So it will be interesting to see how I go in them like over longer distances and how that makes my legs feel. I'm really excited about trialing those ones out. Should be cool.
Yeah, they're one of my favorites, the Jackal. I love them.
So greatest achievement, what would it be?
So race-wise, I would probably say UTA and BTU. So UTA because everything came together. So it just sticks in my mind as like almost the perfect race. So yeah, I want one of those again. I'm due another one of them soon, I'm sure. Let's hope it's the miler. But then the other race as I see as a big achievement is the BTU, and that's because like I say, when I got to Mount Cootha, everything in me was telling me to stop. So it was a real self-test to keep going, to keep pushing when, you know, every ounce of you just wants to stop. You know, it would have just been, like I said, my family were there. It would have just been so easy to get in my husband's van and say, yeah, I'm done. I've done enough now. But yeah, just so to keep pushing after being in the heat all day and get to that finish line, it felt absolutely amazing to cross that finish line. So yeah, that was a real good moment. And then probably another achievement would be I did an Everest on the bike. So not an event, just a self-challenge. And it was just an idea that popped in my mind once I heard about what Everesting was. And at the time, I'd been doing quite a lot of cycling because I'd had an injury at an event prior to that. At the Alpine Challenge, I'd hyperextended on a descent, a very kind of slippy, leafy descent. I'd hyperextended and I was out. So I knew I was going to be out for about 8 weeks. So I got on the bike, and then I ended up staying on the bike for 2 years. So I did quite a lot of races. So I joined a cycling club and did some racing. I joined a women's cycling team. I did some team racing, some crit racing. I did the Three Peaks Challenge twice, 2 years on a run over in Victoria on the bike. Yeah, I was really enjoying it. And then decided before I went back to the trails, because the trails were calling, that I would get this Everest Challenge done. And yeah, it was just again, another really good day. Very hard towards the end, because I think it was about 11 o'clock at night when I finished. So it got really late, and you know, you get tired and you're handling a bike, and yeah, the descending was getting really tough. So yeah, I see that as an achievement. It was something like 260 kilometers, just under 19 hours, and just over 9,000 meters of climbing up and down the same hill. So that was another little adventure.
Oh wow. And I know that you and Cora and team from Triple R Racing, and you had a few people from maybe Rivers. I know the Mountain Goats came down, but River City Runners all came along to help you get to. You guys made it halfway through the Everesting Challenge on an insanely hot day with a cracking thunderstorm and severe wind weather warning. Tell us how that went.
Yeah, that was a good one. So I mentioned to Cora that I'd like to try and attempt an Everest on foot, but it's so difficult because most of the races are on through winter, which makes sense because of the temperatures in Australia. So to try and time doing an Everest around events is going to be quite difficult because of the impact it has on the joints and the quads, especially from the descending. So we decided that we'd have a go in summer. midsummer, of course. So that was a bit crazy. But from a, you know, I knew I wasn't going to Tarawera. It was Christmas. I was off work. Cora was game. She got some people along. You know, it was like, why not? Let's just see what happens. And then we were watching the weather forecast, and it wasn't looking great. And quite a few people backed out because of the predicted storms. But we said, let's just start and see what happens. You know, we're going up and down the same hill. If it gets really bad, we can stop whenever we want. You know, there's nothing to say we have to be out there till the end. But yeah, we did. We started, it was really humid. Then it got really hot. It was not supposed to go above 27 as far as the weather forecast was concerned, but it got to, I think Cora recorded over 33 degrees. So it got really hot. And then we got the storms, and then after the storms we got the humidity, so we got a bit of everything that day. But yeah, we made it to the half Everest, and we all finished kind of within a lap of each other, and yeah, it was actually a really good day. You know, it was good to do it as a team. The banter was good, and you know, to see each other on every lap was good, and we had lots of people come out and do a few laps with us. That was lovely. So yeah, it was great. I don't know when we'll plan, or if we'll plan to try for a full Everest. I'm not too sure. The jury's still out on that one. And I think a lot of that is down to the timing and the weather, because I think we would need to seriously consider the conditions before attempting a full Everest. And unfortunately, there's still lots of races to do. So I'm not too sure yet.
Well, it sounds like it looked like such a fun day. And
Yeah.
I think that's like the thing about trail running, the trail running community, is that, you know, everyone gets together, everyone supports each other, and everyone is just ready for a challenge and like a bit of a trail running party.
Absolutely. And that's what it was. It was just a party on the hill, you know. It was great fun.
Oh, that's awesome. So I think we'll leave it there. Massive thank you for coming along, and I can't wait to see you out on the course. You kind of like, you have turned up to so many of our training camps. You almost, I don't want to say part of the furniture, because you're a bit nicer than the furniture. You are definitely part of our team. Like last Sportiva has been part of our team for 3 years, and it's just so nice to have lovely athletes like you guys supporting our event, and you know, the caliber that, you know, your results do prove that you are of an athlete is really like definitely a cut above, and we're so happy that you love our event, and we really do want to see you do well on the 100 mile, and it will be interesting definitely watching you do that. So I think the field for the women's is going to be quite hot, actually. So I think almost everyone is coming back, which is fantastic. So it's going to be a good day for the women out there. And I hope, hopefully that means that even though you guys are racing, I know you won't be racing, right? So just hopefully that you look at it as like you have some amazing company out there while you're...
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some trail chats, and yeah, it'll be great. It should be a really good day. And I just look forward to crossing that finish line at some point.
That's it, isn't it? Like, you guys will all be out there, you know, like in this struggle together. It will be I can't wait to see you cross the line, especially because you have had that really tough year in 2021 where you have had to come back from injury. So massive thank you for stepping up.
Oh, thank you. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the training camps as well. I'll be there for February's and for June's, but I'll be over in Tassie at the April one. So, but I'll definitely be there for the June one.
Oh, yeah. Look, we will be. I'm sure we'll be watching. Is it on the exact same weekend as our training camp?
I think it's the exact same one. Yeah, because I was trying to entice Cora to come along, but yeah, I think it's the same date as the April camp.
We'll watch you. So when we're going around, I think we're doing 42 kilometers or something horrendous. So when we're going around, we'll see if we can track you. Yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be fun. It will give us something to do at the top when we're waiting for people to come up the climb and meet us. So it'll be lovely.